For whatever reasons, the industry prefers the bigger, the beautiful, the louder, better hooks, better story, and everything built around one question: how do we make this sound good? And then there's this guy. Oliver Tree is interesting because on paper, he did almost everything wrong. He gave himself a haircut that people describe as a punishment. He wore his mother's ski jacket from the 1980s. He rode a Razor scooter to press interviews. He lied in almost every conversation he ever had with a journalist. He announced his retirement so many times it stopped being news. He cancelled his own debut album 2 days before it was supposed to come out. And when his songs finally actually blew up, when he had the biggest hit of his life sitting right there in his hands, he changed genres and walked away from it.
Your whole shtick is that every album's your last album.
It's not a shtick, man. You never know when it's my last album.
By every metric the industry actually uses, Oliver Tree was underperforming. He was leaving money on the table at basically every turn. Any A&R rep will tell you he could have been twice the size he was if he'd just run the playbook like everyone else. But here's the thing, he never looked at any of it and felt like he was losing something. On the 14th of June 2026, Oliver Tree died in a mid-air helicopter collision over Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. He was 32 years old. He was mid-tour, mid-album cycle, mid-everything. He was posting the day it happened, and the first reaction from almost everyone, including people who loved him, was the same 3 words: "This isn't real." Because if you know anything about this man, anything at all, faking your own death was completely within the realm of possibility. That's the story, not the crash. The fact that a man built a persona so committed, so relentlessly maintained for a decade, that when he actually died, the world's first instinct was to check whether it was a bit. So how does someone become that? Chapter 1. The Kid Who Was Built For It. Oliver Tree Nickel was born on the 29th of June 1993. In Santa Cruz, California. His parents were traveling circus performers. Because of their work, he spent his early childhood in a mobile home, moving across the country, before the family settled back in Santa Cruz when he was about 12. The walls of that motorhome were lined with instruments, piano lessons at 3, writing original compositions at 4, and by his own claim, a full album written by the time he was 6. So let's kill the first myth right now. Oliver Tree did not stumble into music as a joke. He was not a comedian who learned 3 chords. He was a trained musician from before he could read properly. And everything that came later, every stupid haircut, every fake retirement was built on top of that foundation. When Oliver was 13, his cousin got spinal meningitis. Within a week, he was brain dead, and then he was gone.
What's an experience that's changed your life?
When I was 13, my cousin Wayne got spiral meningitis. Within a week, he became brain dead and died. After that moment, I was like, I could die at any time. And so I just wanted to take any moment on and try everything, which ultimately ended up me becoming a drug addict. I started selling drugs, I got kicked out of my home.
He was sleeping on friends' couches, in and out of houses, selling to stay afloat, still in high school. Alongside all of that, he was riding scooters competitively, at an amateur level, good enough that he genuinely believed professional was on the table, until a series of injuries around age 18 ended it. He'd later tell that crash story in interviews dozens of times, and the details changed every single time. The height of the ramp, the speed, the year, which wrist broke first. That's the other thing you need to hold on to. Chapter 2. The Funeral in the Desert.
I had an LSD trip where I actually watched my own funeral, and I had what's called a rebirth.
He told it more consistently than any other story in his life, which is itself notable. He was 17. His family took him to Burning Man, which is exactly as chaotic as it sounds. He took an enormous quantity of acid, 16 tabs by his own account, on top of everything else, and he stopped being able to see the world in front of him. He took off his clothes and ran into the Nevada desert, past the perimeter, out into open nothing, and out there alone, cut up, hallucinating, he watched his own funeral. He saw his family. He heard them saying he was a good kid who got lost. He watched a version of his life play out to its end, an old man dying alone, surrounded by people who had given up on him. Then he saw a light in the distance, ran toward it, made it back inside the fence, and a stranger gave him water and clothes and stayed with him through the night. He called it a rebirth. He got sober, and he replaced one addiction with another one on purpose. Chapter 3. There are levels to this. Before we go further, you need to understand what he was actually attempting, because without the numbers, the next part doesn't land. There are basically 3 levels to a music career. Level 1. You can quit your day job. Your music covers rent. That's it. That's the whole bar. Level 2. You're touring, you're charting, You have a team, you're comfortable. Level 3. You're a household name. A song of yours plays in a grocery store in a country you've never visited. Almost nobody clears level 1. Millions of people upload music every year. The overwhelming majority never make a single dollar that matters. It's not close. And the ones who do clear it almost never clear it twice. Oliver Tree cleared level 1 at 19 and then walked away from it. While he was still in high school, DJing under the name Criff, he was working the Santa Cruz electronic scene hard enough to land a slot at Wobbleland in San Francisco in 2011, opening for Skrillex. He collaborated with a local producer called Minnesota. He opened for Zed's Dead, Nero, Tyler the Creator, and Frank Ocean. Then he went to San Francisco State to study business deliberately, to learn how the industry worked from the inside. And while he was a student, he signed to R&S Records. He was 18, and then he did something absurd. He covered Karma Police. He took one of the most protected songs in alternative music, put his own rap verse over it, and got it in front of Tom York. And Tom York approved it. His song Demons came out in 2013 through R&S. He had the cosign, he had the label, he had the endorsement of one of the most respected songwriters alive at 19 years old, and it went nowhere commercially. So he quit. He left music, transferred to the California Institute of the Arts, and spent the next few years studying music technology, graduating in 2016. He decided that the problem wasn't the music. The problem was that nobody was ever going to hear the music. That is the single most important decision of his career, and almost nobody talks about it. Chapter 4. The Excavation. Here is where the conversation about Oliver Tree usually goes wrong. People see the outfit and assume the music is a joke too, like it's all one extended bit with nothing underneath. It's the exact opposite. And then he built Turbo. Now here's the part that gets missed. Turbo was not invented. Turbo was excavated. The bowl cut, that's the haircut he'd had his entire life and was too scared to change. The ski jacket, that's his mother's, given to her by his aunt in the 80s. The sunglasses, those are the glasses he wore as a kid because they made him feel cool. The socks and sandals, that's genuinely how he dressed because it was comfortable. The giant pants were the pants he'd always wanted. Every element was real. He just took the real thing and turned it up to a 22. That's not a costume. That's a person taking every unfashionable, uncool, genuine detail of his own life and weaponizing them. And he understood exactly why it worked, which is the part that separates him from every other gimmick artist of that era. He said, the opposite of love isn't hate. The opposite of love is indifference. He would much rather you hated him than ignored him, because hate means you're looking. And if you're looking, he's got you. The character debuted not in a music video, but in a Vine with his friend Getter, a guy in a bowl cut, introducing himself as Turbo, saying something so unhinged it's still quoted a decade later. The character got famous before the music did. He also changed his name. He'd been releasing as Tree, which was functionally unsearchable. Oliver Tree was findable. That is a business school decision, made by a guy who went to business school specifically to make decisions like that. Chapter 5. The hit he didn't want. Ugly is Beautiful was supposed to come out in March 2020. 2 days before release, he announced it was cancelled, and he announced his retirement again. It finally arrived in July 2020, debuting at number 14 on the Billboard 200 and topping Billboard's Alternative Albums chart. But the song that changed everything wasn't even on it originally. Life Goes On was added to the deluxe reissue, Ugly is Beautiful, shorter, thicker, and uglier, in May 2021. He'd written it years earlier. It had been sitting in a folder. It exploded on TikTok. It has since passed 700 million streams on Spotify. And when the internet started mishearing the hook as Life Goes Onion, he didn't fight it. He walked straight into the meme, put bandages all over his face for a Genius interview, and claimed it.
Life goes on and 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 on.
Then in 2022, the strangest chapter of his career happened, and is worth getting exactly right, because most retellings butcher it. A German producer named Southstar, real name Leon Kirschneck, remixed Oliver's 2020 song Jerk into a fast, piano-driven dance track and called it Miss You. He released it in May 2022. It blew up. Then, in August, a nearly identical version appeared. Same title, same sample, same production, credited to Robin Schulz and Oliver Tree. released through Atlantic. By late October, the UK singles chart had both South Star's version at 23, Schulz and Trees at 9. The German music scene erupted. Artists including Bowser, Prince Pi, and Young Hearn told fans to stream South Star's original instead. South Star called it an exact copy of his rework. Schulz's manager said the confusion had been intentional. Atlantic put out a statement calling the Schulz version the definitive one and accusing South Star of remixing without permission. And Oliver, by his own account, he found out about the dispute after it had already been released. He eventually made peace with South Star publicly, on stage.
Just so you guys know, every time you listen to South Star's song, motherfuckers, you guys are giving me money. Right? And every time you listen to my song, you are giving money to motherfucking South Star, so get the record straight. And I want to make myself very clear. I want to give props to motherfucking Berlin legend, South Star!
Chapter 6. The War with Atlantic. Oliver never pretended things were fine with his label. That was maybe his most consistent trait. He said Atlantic sat on his debut album for years. He said he was forced into releasing 2 EPs he never wanted to release, carving his life's work into pieces to promote itself. He compared it to a publisher randomly releasing chapters of your book while you're still writing it. He once posted all of this in a Reddit AMA and then deleted the entire account. And on the money, he was blunt, in a way most signed artists never are. He described a split where he saw somewhere in the region of 12 to 14 cents on the dollar. He said that over the first several years, after taxes, it averaged out to something like $80,000 a year, while, by his own accounting, he was generating tens of millions for the company, and underneath all of it, one accusation that after 8 years and tens of millions of dollars, the label had lost interest because he wouldn't make TikTok songs. The irony is almost too neat. The artist who arguably understood viral attention better than anyone at his label was being punished for refusing to chase it. He left, and on the 24th of April 2026, he released Love You Madly, Hate You Badly himself through his own imprint, Alien Boy Records. He was, for the first time since he was 18 years old, completely free. And here's what he did with that freedom. He took the costume off. He wrote that there was no character for this album, no new haircut, no bit, just a real person trying to survive. 10 years of building the loudest character in music, and the second nobody could tell him what to do, he stopped needing it. Chapter 7. June 14th. On the 4th of May 2026, he announced First World Tour, 67 dates, 30+ countries, all 7 continents, including a proposed show in Antarctica. The promo art had him standing on the Great Wall of China with landmarks stitched in behind him. On the morning of June 14th, he boarded a Bell 206 Jet Ranger with 4 other people: pilot Alexandra Souza, Brazilian producer Lucas Frota, Argentine director Lucas Vignale, and Argentine YouTuber Gaspar Prim Diaz, who was 23 years old and had over 3 million subscribers. The two of them had been working on something together. At approximately 8:59 a.m., over Recreo dos Bandeirantes in Rio's West Zone, the helicopter collided mid-air with a Eurocopter AS-350. The Bell exploded on impact, setting roughly 20 cars on fire. The smoke was visible for miles. Debris was scattered across more than 100 meters. All 6 people died. 5 bodies were identified within hours. Oliver's was not. The damage was severe enough that formal identification required dental analysis, which was completed on June 16th. One person who was supposed to be on that flight wasn't. Producer Victor Wow skipped the helicopter because he's afraid of flying and drove instead. Within hours, the theory was everywhere. Atlantic Records had him killed. You can see why it caught. 2 months earlier, he'd publicly torched his former label. He'd been talking about death in his art for a decade. His final album has a track called Flowers, whose video was filmed at an aviation graveyard in Riga, Latvia, including a shot of him standing between 2 decommissioned helicopters. The final track is called How It Ends. In a podcast interview, unprompted, he asked the host to ask him how he wanted to die, and answered, jumping from a helicopter into a volcano. Oliver Tree made art about death constantly for 15 years because a 13-year-old lost his cousin in a week and never got over it. He said outright that he was rehearsing his own death through his work. Chapter 8. Success after death. His streaming numbers went vertical. His catalog re-entered charts. Millions of people who dismissed him as a haircut suddenly went and listened. He was right about it working that way. There's a specific thing he did that I don't think survives him. He built a character that was made entirely out of true things, not a mask over the person, amplified until you couldn't look away. He used it as a delivery mechanism for music about a kid who almost died in a desert, and hundreds of millions of people heard it and thought, that's me, most of them without ever knowing why. Like the video and tell me, what would you like to see me cover next? See you next time. And also, I promised myself to reply to every single comment this video gets, so feel free to hurt my fingers.